Hi, everyone. So, we have learned a lot of things this year, right? And I think one of the biggest things that we've learned is, of course, what I'm doing right now, which is creating video content. I think over this past year, we have learned a lot about how to make videos, what works, what doesn't work, how to edit stuff, how to add stuff, how to make things nice and cool. And sometimes it's just how to just overview and review things with young people because ultimately, in an age in which, everyone's watching things and seeing things, being able to create video content helps a lot because even for young people, especially when we go through our lessons real quick, it just helps to be able to have that video to look back at, to review, or to just use as a way of being able to work through a reading or work through through responses on a reading, right? Um, and this goes actually into the next part, which is the conversation about quality versus quantity. You know, one thing that we've seen this year, and one thing that I've seen more and more is this going back to this idea of quality work versus quantity of work. Right? Let's spend a little bit more time on this. Let's do this. Let's get more a deeper understanding of this versus okay, I need you to do this assignment, this assignment, this assignment, this assignment, this assignment, where even young people are just going to be completely and utterly overwhelmed by all the amounts of work that they have to do, right? And in our bubbles, in our classrooms, we were able to do that, but at home it's a little bit more difficult. Like, I don't know if you could hear my daughter in the background, because that is a reality, right? With us working at home, right? It's the same thing with some of our young people where they have to deal with working at home and having to, some of them are parents, so they have things going on in the background and that might distract them. They might have their child, in class as well, like doing work as you are doing work. So it becomes really, really important to think about the quality of work that you know that they can do versus the quantity of work. um and then this even goes into even gauging the classes it relates to the voracious hunger to move ahead versus contemplating what is the actual hunger that they might actually have to do the work. Because one thing that we've also seen within our classrooms, whether we were in the classroom or not, there are some young people that can just do the work. They can really, really do the work. They really understand the concept. They really understand what's going on. And then there's some of them that are just like, what's next? What's next? Right. And for us, some of them are on camera, but then there are some young people that are not. There are some young people that are consistently on, and then there's some young people that are not. Right. So it becomes very important to be, and that actually goes into the next one about being responsive to the energy in the levels of the classroom and Zoom, but really being able to gauge the young people, really being able to gauge them in their ability to actually work with us, right? Because we don't know what's going on in their lives. And I know they can say they're fine, they're okay, everything's cool. But, one thing that we've learned this year, some of our young people, more than ever before, we're actually going into their world and we're discovering more things, right? And it becomes really, really important for us to be able to be responsive, right? Be responsive to their energy, but also be responsive to their needs. Because ultimately, we might want to do all these different things, really cool things, really, really awesome things on our end. But for some of our young people, they're just like, I just want to get the work done. I just need to get something done, right? And so then it becomes really, really important for creating different ways for students to turn in assignments, right? And everyone here has had at least one young person who has difficulty finding Wi-Fi. And I know, especially when things were really locked down, some of our young people didn't have that access to Wi-Fi. They didn't really have that access to connect. They didn't really have those tools. So we had to figure out ways in which they could turn in assignments, right? I think one of the things that has worked this year, especially for my art class, was hey, after you finish the assignment, don't worry about turning it on Zoom, on Schoology. Take a picture of it, send it over to my phone, right? Or if you can, email it to me. Or even if that, just show it up on screen so I can see you know, the finished assignment, when we get a chance, right? And that becomes part of what we have to do, figuring out different ways for students to turn in assignments, because as we know, some of our young people are not, you know, don't have a stable home, don't have a stable place to be, and oftentimes it becomes really, really important for us to be responsive to that need. Um, and then lastly, using different applications and platforms to support learning. I know this throughout this year, you know, more than ever before, we have had to use different applications, have had to use different platforms to have our young people connect to learning, to engage in learning. And I know for myself, you know, a couple of them, OER project. The OER project is the Old Big History Project. I know I use that a lot for my world history, but if you are a science teacher or someone that is out of content, but wants to engage in science stuff, go to OER project. The 1619 project, of course, through the New York Times. That's a really good project, really good U.S. history project. And then finally, street law, of course, for anything that has to do with Supreme Court cases or just law. And I think it helps engage young people in those things. It's We have learned to use so many different applications throughout this year, and how to integrate them into our classrooms. And I think after all of this, my hope is that we continue using these things and also remind ourselves that the world in which our young people live is a world very much that we need to be responsive to their needs, because ultimately at the end of the day, with the work that we do, we have to be responsive. When we had to work with our young people, some days a little bit easier, some days it's harder, but ultimately at the end of the day, it's us being able to work with our young people wholeheartedly, with as much as we possibly can, within parameters, because I know some of us do have the have that want to respond to an email at 10 o'clock at night or 2 o'clock in the morning, because that does happen. um where we had to really be able to be responsive to the needs of our young people. And I think this is something that we have learned throughout this year, that as much as we want, as much as we want to support our young people, right? We have to just create that relationship that ultimately works for learning for life, right? Because at the end of the day, our young people are with us. And as much as we can with them in working to create these relationships, ultimately it pays dividends. It pays in the long term. And even if, later on in life they do great things with what we teach them or what we do with them, right? That's that's for the future. But for now, right? As long as we have learned something throughout this year, I think ultimately we have done the best we possibly can to provide an equitable education for our young people, even though at times what we have seen is a systemic inequality that exists within our society. And so I want to give props to everyone here, things that I've learned from everyone here this past year, because I know for sure a lot of the stuff that you know that I've learned this year from you all has made me a better teacher. And I hope what we have shared has made all of us better teachers in the end. So, with that being said, take care, everyone, and see y'all soon.